We have the third speaker, Dr. Ajit Ranade, Chief Economist of Aditya Birla Group. Someone who comes from the industry, someone who has a careful analysis of the situation that is confronted in this country, and he will be talking to us from the industry perspective.
More and more people in India are going to be relocating in very tight clusters, what we call cities or urban clusters, and therefore we have this strange situation that for a country as a whole, our population density is actually kind of middling. It's about 400 or 500 per square kilometer, but in places like Mumbai, it's 20,000 per square kilometer. And this is, and I submit to you, this is an unavoidable, irresistible process, which means a lot of people are migrating or congregating here who are not here. They're not part of this homeland. That's one thing. Secondly, in this urban clusters, it's going to use a lot of the same thing that I mentioned in the beginning. This process is going to use a lot of coal, a lot of limestone, a lot of iron ore, a lot of bauxite, a lot of minerals. And the minerals come from only a certain part of India. Fortunately or unfortunately, the whole country is not evenly blessed with the minerals that we need to use. So just like population is not going to be evenly spread across the country, eventually it's going to be urban clusters. Similarly, minerals are going to be unfortunately concentrated in one part of India. We also have the additional challenge that we have a four-way overlap in many parts of in such parts of the country. These very parts also have our forest cover, which is dwindling. It also is home to many of our major water bodies. It is home to much of our wildlife and biodiversity, and it is home to the Adivasis. So actually it is I submit to you, a sort of a four-way intersection or four-way overlap. And also, sorry, it's also underneath all this are those minerals that we need to get for our development, if we believe in a mineral-based development. We find that this whole anti-migrant sentiment which is whipped up during elections or politically, I find it a little amusing that we welcome the bauxite and we welcome the iron ore and the coal and the limestone, which comes in the form of course, industrial and urban development, but we don't want the people from those regions. So the mineral can come, but the people can't come. So this is a sort of a slight amusing take. Minerals are national assets. Okay, minerals are considered to be sovereign wealth. So if you want to get to that mineral, you go to the sovereign, you go to the central government and say, we would like to use these minerals for development, to make iron or to make aluminum. So the government of India says, okay, we will sign a contract with you, but are you sure you have the access to the land? Because the minerals are typically under the land, they're underground. Do you have access to that piece of land? We say, no, we don't yet have an access. So the government of India says, well, look, you need to get access to that land. For that, and land is a state subject, meaning each state government can decide who gets what land. It's the whole question of land. So you know what, you need to go back to the state government and sign either buy the land or get a long-term lease signed in your name. So once we know you have the land, then we'll give you the rights to go underneath the land, underground, and get the minerals. So we say, okay. So we go back to the state government and we say, look, we want to do some mining here, we want some minerals, but we need access, the government of India will not give us the minerals unless we have the piece of land. So can we sign a lease, please? The state government says, oh, you need the minerals here, is it? We'll give you the lease, but show us that you have the rights to that mineral first. We won't just give you land. You want to give us a business plan, show us that you have the rights to the minerals underground, which is basically a football. And this process, by the way, can go on for 8 or 10 or 15 years. And then, of course, I'm just giving you the bare sort of technical process. Actually, then you heard of stories about how palms have to be greased and blah, 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 blah. So I'm not even going. I'm just saying that why is it that this process is so complicated, and why is it that the other mineral-rich countries, such as Australia or Canada, you might think these are examples from developed countries and very sparsely populated, sparse population density, but even South Africa, why is it that those countries have somehow managed to find a solution to this and the process is not as long? They also are federal structures, they have state governments, central governments. But in India, it's a very complicated, very deeply sort of complex process. And I don't see any solution. I mean, this is not a solution which can be imposed by the central government or the state. So this is a challenge we need to meet for. I feel that, like Dr. Sundar said, that this is their homeland, and if that is a fundamental right, then one must negotiate with those rights. And the way forward, I mean, I agree, as I said in the beginning, that Salva Judum is a problem area which is a 5-year-old problem or maybe 7-year-old problem. But this challenge of shared prosperity or inclusive growth has a much longer time span, and hopefully we will try and find a solution to Salva Judum, but we need to also negotiate the larger issue of shared development. So I submit that unless there is sort of a consensus on rights and negotiations of how those rights will be exchanged or sold or bought, the path ahead will be very difficult. And just remind you that the 4-way complexity: mineral wealth, above that is our water bodies, above that is our forest, above that is the rights of the Adivasis. All these 4, in no other country you have this overlap. I think India is unique in that sense, that you have overlap of these 4 layers. In Australia and Canada, where mineral-rich countries, or even in the US, you don't have this challenge. I'm glad that you mentioned Vinoba Bhave, because he believed in Bhudan, and in fact, it started off just as a. I think that I remember the incident in his life that he woke up and he had a dream. He said that I saw this man giving, and I went and appealed to him, and he said, "Is it an idea?" And so somebody said, "Well, it may work," and he actually tried it out, and to his very pleasant surprise, it actually worked, and that's what kicked off. And then he had this major Padayatra in mostly Andhra Pradesh and Bihar. And we now have, I think, if I'm not mistaken, more than 1 million square miles, is it? 1 million square mile of...
45 lakh acre.
45 lakh acres. So it's almost half a million acres of land. And these Dan Patras... Sorry, yeah. Large amount. So Dan Patras were given, and I was a few years ago I was involved. What happened is that because of the real estate boom in the last 5-6 years, the second or third generation of the people who had given those Dan Patras were on frayed paper today, parched paper, and they are under great risk. By the way, they are under great risk. Either they'll burn down, sabotage, destroyed. So there was an appeal that these land records, the Dan Patras, should be immediately made digital and computerized. And now it looks like the second or third generation descendants of the original Dan Patra givers are refusing to honor some of these Dan Patras. And therefore the actual Bhudan movement unfortunately was never followed up in many cases. So that